Hey folks, welcome back. In today's lesson I'm going to show you how to make a tripod cup stamped out of thin slabs of clay. To be successful with this, you're going to need some type of a straight edge, some plastic wet clay, and preferably a stamp that you've made yourself, but any stamp would actually work. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in and we'll get started. Alright, so let's get started. I've started with a nice wedged piece of clay. I'm going to roll it up roughly a 1/4 inch thick slab. Thin this out just a little bit. Now to make a nice uniform slab, you can just take a couple sticks. These happen to be a 1/4 inch thick. Put them on each side. Take your rolling pin. Okay, it's looking nice and even. First thing I like to do is cut a square edge. With a needle tool, fettling knife. You can see it's relatively even. Then I'm just going to cut a 90-degree angle. There's always a lot of excess, so these dry out really quickly, so I like to put these right back into the bag. First thing I'm going to do is just measure the height. This is going to be how tall your cup is. Looks like I can get a 5-inch tall mark here. Come to the other side and see how high I can go. 5 inches right to there. So I'm going to match up my two marks. Should have a nice rectangle. So what you really want to do when you're making these is, anytime you're making any slab cup, you want to treat the rim and taper it ever so slightly. Think of this as sort of, feeling better on your lips. This is called the rim, but oftentimes it's called a lip. I also like to call it a visual termination. Alright, so I want to identify what's going to be the inside. Usually take the smoothest side. And I'm just going to compress that lip into itself by pushing my finger, taking that sharp edge, pushing it into itself. The lips have a tendency to feel better when it's sharpened slightly from the inside. Some people also take some newspaper or plastic and just lightly run their finger across. This gives you a nice tapered edge. Okay, this is going to be the inside, so we're going to flip that over. And I'm going to stamp with these are just bone dry stamps I made with a line. It's going to be a pattern similar to this. And I'm going to leave a little bit of space on top, like 1 inch. Okay, you can see I made a mark. And I'm just going to alternate all the way across. I seem to be a little faster if I do 2 rows at once. Okay, well, I finished stamping. I've actually let the slab sit out for maybe 15-20 minutes. It's just slightly drier than it normally would be. Remember, I have a tapered edge on the inside. So I'm going to try to stand this up. Fold it over on itself. And the trick here, you can see with this cup, I have a repeating pattern. So the trick is to try to line up the seam so it's a continuous pattern. It's very visually busy, so it's not the end of the world if it isn't. Looks like if I overlap this one to here, it's going to work. Good. So I'm liking the way that looks. You can see I have a nice tapered edge on the inside. I'm going to use some type of square edge to help me cut it. I'm going to use an X-Acto blade, or I could use a fettling knife to cut it. Some people like to, just for safety reasons, they like to have a straight edge so the knife doesn't wander around. You're going to have a little bit of excess clay on both sides. The clay is the same exact consistency, but I'm going to still score lightly or just add a little bit of water. Now, in a perfect world, I'll be using the same color slip, but I've done shrinkage tests. I know that both these stonewares, this is 811 red, and then that's Bravo buff, shrink at the same rate, or within 1%. I'm going to try to slightly work that seam together without marring my texture too much. Okay, so I think we're ready. We're going to be taking, this is the bottom of the cup, I'm going to be making a triangular shape with my hands. I'm going to just be making sure that my seam is on one of the flat areas. And just keep working it all the way down. This is when I'm going to go ahead and score ever so lightly and add some slip. Again, this clay is the same consistency, so I can just, a little bit of water is going to help it stick together. Then I can start pinching and working these seams down. You're not going to be able to close it all the way. We have to plug that up later. There's usually a little bit of excess clay where you're pinching this together, so you can chop that off. The cheese slicer is like perfect for this. Okay, it's a good idea to let it sit like this for a while. You can already see though that it's able to stand because it is a tripod. Go ahead and look on the inside. There's that hole on the very bottom, and there's all kinds of seams we need to plug up, but this is all done later in more the leather hard state. This is the stage where I can start belling this form out a little bit if I want. You can see how this has a little bit of a curve to the outside. And this one's got lots of curves. You can use your finger to belly it out. You can use a rib. Anything that's round. Some people use a spoon. All the way from the base. Super wet, it's just like hard to handle, but you can see how I have a better curve now, a little bit more appealing shape, a little bit more volume. I'm going to keep this round, or I could slightly triangulate it, it's totally up to you. I'm going to let this set up, and then we'll go ahead and finish the seams on the bottom. Okay, where you can see that I have a largely finished piece. It's shaped, it got a little belly to it. I'm just going to work on the seam a little bit. And of course that base, I have to plug that hole. So what I'm going to do is, I've stamped another piece so I can get a somewhat of a continuing pattern. I'm going to taper this edge just a little bit right here with a knife. I like to think about this as like a, sort of like a pumpkin lid. I'm just going to make a wedge shape out of a piece of clay and wedge it in there. I'm going to take this and make a triangular shape. And you will not see that after it's fired. Okay, so because I have that wedge shape, I can feel a little resistance. See the hole's plugged. Now I'm going to take some little wedge pieces, some little wedges, and inside those creases, I got to fill those. Unless you're making like a planter shape out of this where you don't, doesn't really matter. But if this is going to be a functional cup, I want to round those edges, somehow plug them a little so it's easier to clean. I'm just going to just take this needle tool and rough this area up a little bit. Take my little wedge shapes, see if I can kind of see that that piece is in there. I'm going to ram it in there. I don't know if you guys can see me do this. I just don't want to trap any air bubbles in there. Do that all the way around. You can see the inside is much more rounded. There's no hard edges. It's going to be much easier to clean and use. This is my last opportunity to make sure I have a round top or a triangular or ultimately any shape you really want, as long as it looks obvious. Some people put handles on, some people don't. I kind of like them without. Here's a little family of them. Anyway, I hope this helps, and happy slabbing.